4 of my top 5 favorite home theater setups have been built around true cinema loudspeakers, the kind designed with one purpose in mind, to recreate a true cinematic experience in the home. Nothing against hi-fi or more lifestyle-oriented home theater speakers, but you do seem to get just a little bit more for your money when you do away with certain concerns like finishes. But is the Magnat Cinema Ultra speaker system the better way to home theater? Let's find out. True cinema speakers tend to have 4 main things in common. First, they come in every finish, so long as it's black. They tend to be smaller or monitor-like in size, relying on a subwoofer or 2 to tackle the bass. They're typically an LCRS, or left, center, right, and surround in their design. In other words, all of the speakers are the same for a seamless sonic presentation, and all of these things tend to mean that they are less expensive than their lifestyle or more consumer-friendly counterparts. The Magnat Cinema Ultra LCR 100 THX is no different. Now, this speaker is a two-way loudspeaker that features a 1.5-inch soft dome tweeter sandwiched between a pair of 6.5-inch woofers. The 3 drivers and the speaker's sealed and, might I say, nicely reinforced cabinet combine for a reported frequency response of 80 Hz to 27 kHz. Sensitivity is stated at 93 dB with an impedance range of 4 to 8 ohms. In our experience, while the 100's impedance can fluctuate, most modern AV receivers will have no issues driving these speakers. One of the things that makes the 100 special is their THX Ultra certification. If you're unfamiliar with how this works, THX tests for things like axial frequency response. In other words, is the speaker's response neutral or flat? They test output versus distortion, as in, can the speaker play loud without distorting? Lastly, they test horizontal and vertical dispersion because when it comes to home theater, we don't all often get to sit in the primary listening position. Every speaker in the Magnat Cinema Ultra LCR 100 lineup, minus the upward-firing ATMOS speakers, are THX certified at the Ultra level, meaning they pass every test in spaces up to 3,000 cubic feet. As for the speakers themselves, they're pretty basic rectangular boxes, designed to be positioned either horizontally or vertically, freestanding or mounted on a wall. Because these speakers are sealed, meaning they don't have rear or forward-facing ports, they're very flexible with respect to their placement. Now, we placed ours out into the room, set on a pair of Kanto speaker stands, but I did experiment with placing them directly up against our front wall, and I found there to be very little change in their performance, save for some soundstage depth, which obviously was a bit greater when the speakers were pulled out away from the wall versus when they were flat up against it. That said, when watching movies, the difference in soundstage depth isn't really going to be noticeable. Also, the experience didn't change at all whether positioned horizontally or vertically. As for power, like I said a moment ago, the Magnats aren't that difficult to drive. We tested them using the Marantz NR1711, the Pioneer Elite 305, and of course our Onkyo RZ50. While the Marantz did a good job and it was enjoyable, I found that I preferred the sonic stylings of the Pioneer and the Onkyo just a bit more. Sadly, when we put in our request for the Magnat system several months ago, the matching subwoofer was not yet available. So for this review, we relied on a single Klipsch SPL 100 subwoofer. To take full advantage of ATMOS encoded films, we also requested a pair of upward-firing Magnat ATMOS speakers. While the 100s retail for $649 a piece, the total system price of our 5.1.2 ATMOS speaker package with the Klipsch subwoofer came out to be $4,653, which isn't chump change, but we've reviewed speakers on this channel that cost more each. So how do they sound? Well, let's get one thing out of the way first. The Magnat Cinema Ultra speakers need, I repeat, need a subwoofer. These speakers on their own are only rated to around 80 Hz, meaning they are basically all mid-range and treble with just enough bass to allow them to be crossed over with a subwoofer. So with respect to bass, there isn't much, but what is present is robust enough to allow for a seamless blend with any subwoofer, including a more budget-oriented model like the Klipsch SPL 100. So to avoid this being a review of the Klipsch subwoofer, let's just move on to the mid-range. Just know that for true appreciable bass for both music and movies, the Magnat Cinema Ultra speakers need to be paired to a subwoofer or 2. With respect to the mid-range, the best word I would use to describe the Magnats would be clear, as in crystal clear. These speakers have a cleanliness to their mid-range that gives me active speaker or professional studio monitor vibes. Because they have a sealed cabinet, there is no real audible resonances resulting in chestiness, coloration, or worse. The result is just a taut, clear, intelligible sound throughout the mid-range that is incredibly neutral to the source. What's more, the sound doesn't change with orientation, nor does it seem to distort, thin, or break up when pushed. Moving on to the treble, the Magnat has one of the better soft dome tweeters I think I've heard. I will say this, it's not the airiest, but it is incredibly composed and unflappable at volume. Moreover, like the mid-range, it is clear. It hits the high notes without strain and does so confidently without distortion. This is not a bright or outwardly forward tweeter, or speaker for that matter. If anything, this is what a neutral-leaning tweeter should sound like. With respect to soundstage, I'm going to focus on their surround sound performance, opposed to how well they image when listening in stereo. Why am I doing that? Because even when enjoying two-channel content like Ahmad Jamal's digital works, I chose to listen using all of the connected Magnat speakers using one of our AVR's surround sound up mixers. While some of you hi-fi purists may have just thrown up in your mouth a little bit, know that if you're okay with listening to stereo tracks in faux surround sound, the Magnats aren't likely to disappoint. Toss in the upward firing ATMOS modules, and you may be surprised by just how audiophile these budget Magnats can really sound. And with an AVR, no less. Now, watching new release movies like Don't Look Up or The Matrix Resurrections, the Magnat system succeeded in transforming our listening room, giving us a true theater-like sound experience. As was the case with The Matrix, the sonic performance of the Magnats kept Kristi and I watching, despite the film daring us every 5 minutes or so to hit stop. But across all of the Magnat speakers, the sound field was absolutely seamless. This is one of the key benefits of using a true cinema speaker system consisting of identical speakers, because there is no chance for changes in sound quality or tone as you move left to right, front to back. Even the upward firing speakers in this system sounded like extensions of the main speakers. In fact, they were among the more impressive ATMOS speakers I've heard in terms of their effectiveness. The sound was expansive, but also very detailed. While I'm confident Kristi will have a comment or two about intelligibility, I wouldn't blame this on the speakers per se, but rather the film's mixes and or the performers slurring or mumbling their lines. I say this because scenes like the Arrest Him scene from the film Outbreak, a sequence I know to have certain traits like distortion, clipping, sibilance, and in-room resonances in the mix, that is, in the film, that can affect intelligibility, these were rendered 100% faithfully, imperfections and all. Dynamically, the Magnats are capable of abrupt starts and stops. They can play loud, like I'm talking really loud, without strain, but they're also surprisingly captivating at even moderate to above moderate levels, say between 50 and 75 dB. Also, when connected to either the Pioneer Elite 305 or our Onkyo RZ50, I never felt as if the Magnats were having difficulty reaching their dynamic potential. So what's the catch? Well, if you don't mind the look of plain black boxes, or you're okay with such speakers being on display in your room, I'm not sure there is a downside to the Magnat's home theater performance. If you're rocking an acoustically transparent projection screen, I would totally recommend placing 3 Magnats behind it for a truly commercial cinema experience. True, the speakers have no real bass on their own, but most folks looking to put together a home theater system will likely also use a subwoofer or two, so it's kind of a wash. If you don't want to wall mount them, you'll need to budget for capable stands, which does drive the cost up a bit, but nowhere near the point that the Magnats become out of reach. As for their crisp, clear, neutral-leaning sound, whether or not that's for you is just going to be a matter of personal taste. I started this review by saying 4 of the 5 best home theater experiences I've had came at the hands of cinema-style speakers. Those speakers were the JBL 3677s, which are actual cinema speakers, the M&K S150 S300 series speakers, Bowers & Wilkins CT 700 series that I loved so much I used them in the mastering process of my first feature film, and, well, now I can add the Magnat Cinema Ultra series to that list. So how do they compare to true commercial cinema speakers in the 3677s from JBL Pro? Well, as you might expect, the JBLs are going to be able to play louder, like way louder with greater ease and with far better reach. That said, if you're not careful, the JBLs can quickly overpower most residential spaces, making them a possible solution for some of you, but not an altogether great one outside of the commercial arena. In that respect, the Magnats are a far better solution for 99% of folks who want a cinema-like experience, but put an emphasis on home when discussing their home theaters. Compared to the iconic M&K S Series, this is likely a fairer fight, though it has been several years since I've had the M&K speakers in my home, so I won't be picking a winner for you today. But rather, if you are considering the M&K speakers for your home theater but haven't yet made up your mind, you owe it to yourself to also check out the Magnats. On paper, these two speakers are more than comparable, though in terms of price, you can pretty much buy the Magnat system reviewed here for what M&K charges for a single pair of S300s. And as for the B&W CT700s, these speakers are just near and dear to me because my then post-production team and I spent hundreds of hours in front of them for months on end while we buttoned up my first feature film some years ago. The CT700s are fantastic and have a level of resolution and detail to them that make them a just great solution in a mastering type of atmosphere, never mind a personal home theater. That said, the Magnats deserve to be mentioned right alongside the CT series speakers because minus a difference in bass output without a sub, the two speakers target the same niche and do so in a very similar way. I'm not sure which ones I prefer, but I do know that if I were to make another film or remaster my existing catalog, I would take a good long look at the Magnats before potentially spending 2 to 3 times as much on the B&Ws. Oh, and for the 100 or so of you who are going to ask, this or the Sony A9, get out of here. I love the Sony A9 system, but these two setups aren't remotely comparable. Can the A9 transform your space and surround you in glorious Atmos? Yes. Is the A9 easier to potentially use, set up, and live with day to day? Yes again. Does the A9 with the SW5 subwoofer outperform the Magnats driven by a capable AVR? No. I don't know what else there is to say other than I didn't really know of Magnat prior to this past year, and yet they have proven to be quite the surprise. Both the Transpulse and now the Cinema Ultra series have been complete knockouts in their own ways, practically redefining what you can achieve and get for less money. I don't pretend to know what is going on or what's in the water over at Magnat HQ. All I know is they make darn good speakers, and the new Cinema Ultra series is just the latest installment. If you're looking to put together a serious home theater and don't mind a more utilitarian look, then definitely check out the Cinema Ultra series from Magnat. So that's it. That is now my take on the Magnat Cinema Ultra series, but now it's time to find out what Kristi thought of them.
Well, I think you're kidding yourself if you don't think the question people are really going to be asking in the comments is this or the Transpulse.
Ooh.
How did you not think of that?
Well, okay, come on. First of all, the Transpulse are great. They really are. They're fantastic. I love them. I miss them. I'm going to get them back. But can you use a pair of Transpulse in a home theater? Sure. Could you even use a Transpulse as a center channel? Absolutely, especially if you're rocking an acoustically transparent screen. That said, surrounding yourself in Transpulse speakers is probably a pretty big ask for most of you, just in terms of physical space, which is why I didn't really include them. Now, do the Transpulse sound good with home theater? Yeah, absolutely. We enjoyed 2-channel home theater with them tremendously. So that is still an option. But for those of you that are like, oh, I'm building a dedicated theater room, or I want just a more refined theater-like performance where I'm going to rely on a subwoofer for all of the bass, or maybe multiple subwoofers. I'm going to just tune their DSP to the nth degree. I'm going to use Dirac and all of this stuff. I think the Cinema Ultra line is the better fit for that type of customer.
Okay. All right.
As for which one I prefer, I'm not going to lie, the Cinema Ultra speakers are more accurate. They are more neutral. They have less personal character compared to the Transpulse, but one of the things that I love about the Transpulse is its character. So, yeah. Yeah,
you really have to decide what you're going for.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I think these sounded really good for music, and that to me was the biggest surprise. Mm-hmm. I actually think that I even prefer the Ultra series for music over movies.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and duck now, I guess, by your reaction.
No, that's fine.
I mean, I just think that's how good they are.
Yeah.
Now, I don't have any experience with cinema speakers like the ones you've mentioned, so I can't comment on how they compare. And I mean, it's been like 2 years since we've even stepped foot in a real movie theater.
Right.
I'm like, do I even remember what that's like? Time has no meaning.
Right.
I mean, obviously that's a completely unique experience. But I don't see why these wouldn't work in that situation if you're trying to replicate something like that at home.
Sure.
But for me, if you're curious, I would still go with the Transpulse. Yeah. So
I think I know why.
why is that?
Because most true cinema speakers, because they're trying to push sound over the widest possible area, they rely on horns. Horn tweeters, horn mid-ranges, and sometimes even horn woofers, because that is just how you get maximum output over a wide area. While the Transpulse do have a horn waveguide on their tweeter, their sound is what I would consider to be a lot more, say, Klipsch-like. And in that review, we talked about how they are kind of a poor man's Forte 4, maybe even a Cornwall. And well, those speakers all have some sort of tie lineage throwback to actual cinema speakers. Klipsch makes commercial cinema speakers. JBL makes commercial cinema speakers. So I think I understand why that is. Whereas the Ultra Cinema Series here is more or less the kind of speaker that you would find in the mixing room, if you will. It's much more monitor-like. It gives you that precision that engineers are looking for in making sure that they're hearing every little detail, every little nuance, and it's being placed exactly where they want it. So horns are going to give you a little bit more of a broad sound over a wide area with, low power, high SPL, low distortion. These are going to be far more control room-like. And I think that's why you may prefer the Transpulse over these. And why I think that when it comes to movies, I prefer these. But when it comes to music, I'm Transpulse.
Interesting. Yeah. Plus, I just like the old school look of the
Oh,
Transpulse.
well, yeah, of course. I mean, there is no denying that you can potentially have a pair of Transpulse and get away with not needing a subwoofer, where that is just not an option here. So it does add to the number of boxes, cables, and just setup concerns.
So you mentioned that you thought I would have some comments to make about the dialogue clarity.
You always do.
And, for me, the clarity was just okay with these. But honestly, like most of the shows and movies, like current ones, I just really, I do agree with what you said in the review. Like, I don't know. I think that part of it is the mix and the way actors have just gotten into this habit that they kind of mumble through a scene.
Yeah.
So it's difficult for me to say like who or what is at fault.
Yeah.
And honestly, actually, now that I think about it, I personally watched quite a few like older classic movies, like on the Turner Classic Movie Network, over the holidays. And I didn't have a problem understanding their dialogue.
Right.
So maybe it's just the newer movies and TV shows. I don't know. What do you think?
I'm going to argue that while I think the intelligibility is exactly as it should be, and if you're having difficulty because it's a new movie, you can always take the dialogue control of most AVRs and just up it one or two clicks and probably fix what is happening with the newer movies. But I don't know if I can fully blame like Christopher Nolan, because he's kind of the director that him and like Terrence Malick have sort of pioneered. That dialogue is just another texture in the sound mix. And it's okay sometimes if it's not always intelligible or that even discernible. And some people kind of taking that a step too far. I think it's the mixes. I just think new movies, new styles of acting are very much, if you get it, great. If it's there, great. If not, everything else happening around you doesn't matter. You're going to be able to track the story. Because I agree with you on the classic movies, dialogue was like in room. But even on like reality shows, unfortunately, you know, we watch some really trash TV sometimes. And even on reality shows where, you know, the dialogue, the cat fighting and whatnot is very important, you know, to make sure that you hear everything. It was fine. It's crystal clear. So I think intelligibility does rest on the shoulders of the mix, and you either have a really good mix or you have a not so good one.
Right. I agree. I definitely agree. Well, regardless, I'm so impressed with the brand in general.
Yeah.
I mean, to not really even know anything about them prior to a few months ago, they've, at least what we've reviewed so far, it's been really impressive.
There's something going on over there. They kind of know, they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. And, you know, maybe it's sound just for you, maybe it's not. But so far, I've been pretty happy.
Yeah. They're impressive.
Yeah. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
All right, well, that is now our review of the Magnat Cinema Ultra Series. What do you guys think? Let us know down in the comments below. And while you're down there, my question of the day is a pretty simple one. Maybe you saw it coming, but that is, what are your favorite cinema speakers? I'm talking the true cinema type speakers designed to go in either a custom build home theater or maybe even a commercial cinema. Do you have a favorite? When you go to a theater like AMC or whatnot, does the speaker package matter? Let me know. I'm curious. If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. And go ahead and ring that bell so that you're notified when new videos come out. If you use any of the links Kristi left for you down below, and I'm suspecting there's going to be more than a few, know that that is a great way that you have continued to show your support for this channel and the work that we do here. And we thank you all very, very much for doing that. Follow me on Instagram at Recovering Audiophile. And that is it for us today. So remember, the only person who has to like the sound of your system is you. So happy listening, everybody. Thank you again for watching. See you on the next video. Bye.